This week on Downtown Dish, I'm tracking down the ghost of Jack Kerouac. Welcome to Downtown Dish, your destination for everything worth knowing about the city of Lowell. I'm Casey, one of your Mill City Mavens. Tracy's on vacation this week, so I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to indulge my love for Lowell's native son, Jack Kerouac. Since moving to Lowell, I've realized that there's not a lot of fanfare about Kerouac. In fact, many Lowellians have never even cracked one of his books. His alcoholism and bohemian lifestyle are still seen as something shameful. But if Lowell doesn't love Kerouac, the same thing can't be said for the author's love of the city in which he was born. Jack Kerouac was born with a wandering bone, but he always came home to Lowell. He writes about Lowell as though it were a person. He writes about the river as though it could respond to him. He idolizes the mill buildings, the alleyways, and especially the smokestacks. His words give them life. Jack Kerouac's life began here on Lupine Road on March 12, 1922, in his words, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon of a red all-over supper time. Today, I'm going to take you around Lowell and show you some landmarks that are important in the life of Jack Kerouac. So sit back, relax, and enjoy your literary history tour. Religion, and sometimes his own uneasiness with it, is a recurring theme in Kerouac's works. He was raised in the Catholic Church, baptized at the St. Louis de France Church on West 6th Street, and then later attended the parochial school seen here that was run by that church. He later attended the Oblate Fathers School on Merrimack Street. It's no surprise that growing up the son of French-Canadian immigrant parents in a Canadian section of Lowell, that Jack spoke only French until age 7. In 1952, Kerouac wrote to his future wife, Stella Santos, "Nothing can prevent me from returning to Lowell and revisiting the house where I was born in Lupine Road in Centreville and the house where my brother died." When Kerouac was 4 years old, his 9-year-old brother Gerard died of rheumatic fever in this home, and his funeral was held right here. This was the great sadness of Kerouac's life, and one of his greatest influences. He wrote the very tender Visions of Gerard about his brother's life and death. This house is also significant because it's the third home in which Kerouac had lived by the time he was 4 years old. The Kerouac family lived in a total of 9 houses before Jack graduated from high school. Sometimes the family would just move down the street or around the corner. Is it any wonder that as an adult, Kerouac couldn't stay in one place very long? After the Kerouac family moved to Pawtucketville in 1932, Jack and his mother would walk to the grotto and the Stations of the Cross behind the Franco-American orphanage. Young Jack was terrified on his first visit here. In Dr. Sachs, he reminisces about visiting the grotto just before midnight and noticing that the first station of the cross was reflected in the windows of the neighboring funeral home. Interestingly enough, that was the funeral home that eventually hosted his wake. This is the University Avenue Bridge, which in Kerouac's youth was an extension of Moody Street and was called the Moody Street Bridge. At the time, it had low railings and wooden planks for pedestrians. Kerouac commented that everybody in Pawtucketville had the perfect opportunity to commit suicide coming home every night. That's why we live deep lives. This is the setting for the death of the man with the watermelon in Dr. Sachs, and the location from which the characters measure the flood. The Lowell Public Library was very important in Jack Kerouac's development. In Dr. Sachs, he recounts how the night before coming to the library, he would dream about the books, and then once he got here, he would get lost in the magic of the stories. In both The Vanity of Douloise and Maggie Cassidy, he relates how he would skip school at least once a week to come here and read Shakespeare and learn about chess. Jack Kerouac graduated from Lowell High School in 1939 at the age of 17. This clock on the Kirk Street side of the building was donated in part by his graduating class. Boot Mills shows up frequently in Kerouac's work, and it's usually in a context of disdain or despair. At one time, he even refers to it as Gloop Mills. A reason for this could be that after graduating from high school, Kerouac went to work at Boot Mills. He hated it, he felt oppressed, and he quit after one day. In 1942, Kerouac dropped out of New York's Columbia University and returned home to Lowell. During this time, he worked here at the Lowell Sun offices as a sports reporter. As a child, he would write stories about baseball games, and he was a talented athlete in football, track, and baseball, so this was a natural extension for him. While writing The Vanity of Doulois during 1967, Kerouac would frequent the Rainbow Bar on Cabot Street and his brother-in-law Nicky's Bar on Gorham Street in the general vicinity of what is now Ricardo's Trattoria. Today, Ricardo's has a wide selection of wines and features jazz on Saturday nights. I think Kerouac would approve. Jack Kerouac died in St. Petersburg, Florida on October 21, 1969. His wake was held here at the Archambault Funeral Home on October 23rd. And it was here, in the St. Jean-Baptiste Church on Merrimack Street, the church that Kerouac had once described as the ponderous chartreuse cathedral of the slums, that Kerouac's own funeral service was held on October 24th. Death was the one thing that finally made Jack Kerouac settle down. And as you can see from this well-worn path through the snow, 40 years after his death, Desolation Angels and Lonesome Travelers are still making the pilgrimage to his gravesite here at the Edson Cemetery on the outskirts of Lowell. As his one-time girlfriend Joyce Johnson wrote, he had the capacity to make the most ordinary things seem radiant. For more of Jack Kerouac's impressions on Lowell in his own words, visit the Kerouac Commemorative here on Bridge Street, or pick up his novels, Maggie Cassidy, The Town and the City, Dr. Sachs, Visions of Gerard, Vanity of Doulois, or his collection of short stories, Atop an Underwood. For more on Kerouac walking tours in Lowell, visit nps.gov/low or ecommunity.uml.edu/jklowell. If you'd like to comment on this week's show or make suggestions for future programs, see Downtown Dish at facebook.com/riverplacetowers. And this week, from points all over the city, that's Jack Kerouac's view on Lowell.